One day I was with these brothers, man, in the Jamaat, and one brother had like a prayer around his neck, and another brother was like, "What's that?" And he was like, "Oh, it's a I don't know if he said it's a taweez or he says a prayer," and he said, "But what is it?" He was like, "A charm, a fetish, like." Like, what do you want me to say?
We live.
Oh, we're live. We are here and we are live. Finally.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Rahman Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim, ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Ameen.
Ameen.
What up?
Alhamdulillah, we're here and live. The all remote site mobile edition.
That's right. Any street.
You look like you're in the house. You got the best spot out of all of us. You're in random.
Who, me?
Yeah. Are you in the house? You're in your house, right?
Yeah, I'm in the house. I'm in the crib.
Yeah, okay.
So what's going on?
Alhamdulillah. So we're here and we are live. Alhamdulillah.
All the way live.
Alhamdulillah. So we got our good brother Imam, Dr. Imam. You know, recently one of the newest black Muslim male doctors to the community. Inshallah, he's coming out of a previous engagement soon. So at a little later point in the show, he's gonna have to jump on, inshallah, for everybody and the people anticipating that. So we're gonna start off because this brother. Anyway, we're gonna get into it. These brothers over here, I've been trying for a long time. It's actually been almost a year when I put out. Yes, I said your name about a year ago, and it's been a while with everything and different things happening and what have you. So, alhamdulillah, excited about this episode. You're just running around because it's the end of the summer. You got to do your last little.
Man.
Get your last little bit of action.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? So, inshallah, we're happy and we're excited. We'll get into the intros a little after this, but usually Jermaine, tips things off. It looks like he's doing something. So I will start out. I'm your neighborhood friendly good doc, Dr. Halim Naeem, and our brother.
What up, though? It's your man, Jermaine, aka Big Fresh from the East Side, chiming in with the good vibes with the good brothers. We got our good brother, Dr. Rasul Miller. That's right.
What's
doctor.
up? Assalamu alaikum.
So I'm gonna give a little bit. I met Rasul. First time I'm gonna give a little light thing for Rasul. I'd always do a little personal slice, along with the credentials.
Word.
Do that, and then you guys go in and tell the community who you are. So we're trying to use this platform, obviously, to highlight, spotlight, in front of people who may not, be aware and know, everything you are, because sometimes we're so into what you do. I met Rasul. I think the first time I remember meeting Rasul, Dr. Rasul Miller, it was on the floor, on the mat. We were either eating or doing some liquor at Imam Abdullah's house. When Sheikh Mahi came and visited. It was
that was my first time ever going to Detroit.
Yeah, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I thought it was probably 14, 15.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't.
Something like that.
Because I don't think I was a dad at that point. I don't think I had no baby running around. Did I?
You might. Oh, I don't know. You may
maybe if it because Muhammad is almost 5. He might have just been born, or he might have been on the way. Yeah.
Because I remember right after that. You know what? I remember right after that, or maybe it was before. It was one of the times I went to. I think it was my 2012 trip to Senegal. and I would always see your wife like pop up at the most random times that shake my head. I was like, who is this person? I know I didn't at that time. I didn't know it was your wife, man.
Right.
I was like, man, I was like, man, well, yeah, I don't know what's going on. So,
She a soldier with
I know. I
it.
was like, he's one of them ninjas. I was like, this one of them people he be sicking on. Okay. I was like, I know. Okay, I see. But alhamdulillah. So Dr. Rasul Miller got his doctorate in history and Africana studies. I've known the brother. He has tried. He has not tried. He's doing. He has and this is little known, and I need to attend this much more and everything. He has a class, a Maliki fiqh class that is done almost on a weekly basis or bi-weekly. Is it bi-weekly?
Yeah, every week, Thursdays, every week. Sometimes we have to, postpone it, but we pretty consistent every Thursday, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, doing stuff in the community. You're originally, are you from, why do I attach you to Philly at all? I don't know. Is it?
So, I mean, I can get this part of the, so basically, yeah. So I'm originally from, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. And just really, really amazing, cool brother. We was vibing on a whole bunch of, just a whole bunch of different levels. I was like, okay, he one of them real academics too. He didn't let the ivory tower, clump up in his head too much. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So go ahead, Rasul.
Yeah, I was geeked. I remember when we met, man, I was geeked because, we are part of this working class Black Muslim community. And it's like when we be in academic spaces, we be starved for our people, Mm-hmm. But then when we be around our people, we be looking for those ones that come from where we come from, but can sympathize and empathize with all the other stuff we be dealing with. So when I met you, I was like, oh man, this cat is, this the homie. You know what I'm saying? I got to get with him. But in terms of my, life story, I was born in Jersey, North Jersey, outside of Newark. Actually, fun fact, I went to a school called the Chad School until I was 9 for elementary school. And it was this Afrocentric school in Newark, New Jersey. There's a brother named, I'm blanking on his name right now. It's a brother, it's an academic, a professor who wrote a biography of Betty Shabazz. Russell Rickford, my wife had to save me, as she often does. Russell Rickford, he wrote a biography of Betty Shabazz, but he also wrote a book about independent Black schools called We Are an African People. And when I heard We Are an African People, it was like, oh, it brought me back, because in my elementary school, we didn't say no Pledge of Allegiance. We said like this African People pledge that started off, We Are an African People. Then we didn't say no Star Spangled, none of that nonsense. We did like lift every voice and sing every day, So that was me up until I was 9. Realized now that the masjid I was going to at 7, 8, 9, we would go to the Imam Muhammad Masjid, and we would go to what became like the first Salafi masjid in Jersey. So I can remember being a little kid. I actually said this for the first time in front of people in another event a couple of days ago. I can remember now the conversations people had about how Arab we should or shouldn't be. Being a little kid, like, what's that about? And now I understand what that was about, Moved to South Carolina when I was like 9, 10. So I the South is really where I came of age. So it's funny. Part of the reason I'm saying this is because I realize people have a hard time placing me, because so many of these places kind of like imprinted on me. So you got the North Jersey thing until I was 9, Newark, very Black and very Muslim city. Then growing up in a small town, South Carolina, a town called Orangeburg, that has 2 HBCUs, South Carolina State University and Claflin University. So the Black people in Orangeburg, they don't have no inferiority complex. They kind of look down at the white folk because we had our own schools, our own institutions. I remember the nice, expensive prep school that people used to go to. It wasn't any better. It was just straight up, that's where you sent your kids if you didn't want them to go to school with Negroes. It's like where the white people sent their school, right? So it was like no sense of like a stratified, you know what I'm saying? So I spent my summers in New York in high school because my pops was in New York. And then, so there's like a Harlem connection. I spent my summers growing up in Harlem, in the Bronx, Washington Heights. Then after I finished undergrad at Duke, I moved to New York. So I lived in Harlem for about 7 years. So everybody in the community kind of knows me from Harlem. You know, oh, he's a brother from New York.
Yeah.
But then, and at first I didn't like that because everybody likes to front that like they from New York when they not. So then I'm from South Carolina, After a while, I just kind of let people rock with it because I just spent so much time there and it was a part of me. And my research is on the history of Black Muslim communities in and around New York City. So the genesis of that was really just being a young cat, high school, college, hanging out at these different masajid, hearing these old timers tell me their stories and thinking, wow, this is an amazing history. And then reading the books on Islam in America and seeing this stuff is not in the books. You know, the books have not captured the story even a little bit, particularly of Black Orthodox Muslim community. The nation did a much better job of preserving their history.
Sure
but
did.
the reason you think, yeah.
They did.
They definitely did.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the reason you think about Philly is because that's why I did the PhD at Penn. And of course, because Philly is Philly, I wasn't just in school, I was hanging out in Philly. You know?
Doing the thing. Okay. So I wanna get this question to start the base of things off. We'll get, inshallah, a little later when Imam Jihad comes, but specifically because you have a scope as a historian, I want to ask you, and with everything you're doing, are Black people, Black Muslim people in the United States able to learn what we need to learn from ourselves within the state? Are we at a state of things now, currently, where we have to travel to other places to learn what we need to learn about Islam? Are we in a state right now to keep ourselves?
So well, first of all, let me say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق الناس والأخلاق الهادي على صراط المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره من العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على الحمد لله آمين. I cover myself because my tongue get me in trouble sometimes. Us Southern cats, man, we kind of wild with. I was watching a David Banner interview the other day. I was like, man, this cat remind me of cats I grew up with because we loud and crunk.
Huh?
Yeah.
That was a live interview, Shaq.
That was a nice one, yeah. But I think that's why I vibe with Detroit folks. So y'all got a similar kind of like, y'all, you ain't fronting for nobody. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I hear a little echo. So if I'm ever talking over somebody, just let me know because I ain't trying to. But yeah, I would say that's a very dope question. I would say we are at a stage where we can get what we need from ourselves. It's not an imperative that we go anywhere to get what we need. It's not an imperative even that we defer to people here from other places. We have enough people here, and when I say here from other places, this gets tricky, right? Because I remember talking to my fiqh teacher one time, and he was talking about how, a Muslim who immigrates here from another country usually does not have the kind of insight into the situation here to really be able to lead, to really be able to guide people here. And he went on that for a minute, as old Black men do, because they done been traumatized by the way we get treated by other folk. And then I asked him, well, Sheikh, what about people whose parents immigrated here but they grew up here? You know what I'm saying? Because I got good friends that's like brown and down with everything from the nation to the Tijanis to, what I'm saying, all of that. And he was like, well, if they grew up here, they're just like you. And it blew my mind because I didn't expect somebody who was so adamant about we ain't deferring to the immigrants to be that, if they from here and they grew up here and they a part of this, then they're like you. But so I don't mean it to say that like if you ain't Black, right? And I certainly don't mean to say if you ain't Black or white, then we should listen to you, right? But I don't mean to say that if you're not Black, we can't listen to you. I mean, that's not what I mean. But what I mean is that, I think we have enough resources here in our community locally that we don't really have to go anywhere else or defer to anybody who came here from somewhere else, right? Having said that, I also think there's a whole lot to be gained from travel. I was just recently, looking back at Malcolm, rahmatullahi alayhi, his journeys abroad. We talk a lot as Muslims about his journey to make Hajj, but we don't talk enough about or know enough about his journey on the African continent. He talked about meeting one Tijani Sheikh from Ghana while he was in Nigeria, or from Nigeria while he was in Ghana, that just blew his mind, because here's this, African Muslim scholar. Assalamu alaikum, Jihad.
Wow, my goodness, who's going here? You could have waited till you got in the car, bro.
You moving too much. I'm getting queasy.
Oh, golly.
But just to finish the thought, so travel, I think, is very informative. I've been able to travel a little bit, not as extensively as some folks, but I've been able to travel a little bit, and I have a totally different perspective on a lot of things from those travels. So I also think we don't need to fall into a space where we become so kind of domesticated that we close ourselves off to what there is to be gained from going abroad, studying, from having experiences and relationships with folks from other places. And as a final point to that, even though I think for the most part, 99% of us, we ain't got to go nowhere to get what we need, I think those of us who are in positions of leadership and those of us who are teaching should continue to go other places to broaden their knowledge base, broaden their horizon. I kind of see studying abroad similar to like studying Aqidah, theology from an academic perspective. It's not something everybody needs to do. It's not something that's feasible for even most of us to do, but there should be a core group of people who do that and go bring that understanding and that knowledge to as a resource to help our community when it's needed, So that's how I would, my take on that.
So I'm gonna introduce real quick Imam Jihad, and then you can enhance on the introduction. Give you good brother. Keep in mind you on mute, so make sure you press that when it's time to talk. Imam Jihad, alhamdulillah. I know Imam Jihad. The first time I met you was at Princeton. Actually, we were at Princeton and we were talking at a interesting conference. And so these two brothers, alhamdulillah, they some of the closest people to me that I don't call that much. I try to call Imam Jihad a lot, but he don't call me back. But I don't even try to call you like that, Rasul. So sorry. So anyway, Imam Jihad got his doctorate in practical theology just a few months ago. I think it was about a few months ago, inshallah. So you get that double name, Dr. Jihad, Dr. Imam, or do you do Imam Doctor? Dr. Imam is better flowing anyway. Just
he from WD community though. He probably brother Imam.
Brother.
Make sure you get that right. It's brother Imam.
Yeah,
you got roots down there. You got an interesting background because your father was a person who sought knowledge and taught you a lot about things and about Islam. You studied traditionally. You also got ISLA LA that has a school that I remember seeing the videos of you teaching some young men just traditionally over here. So I want you to fill in whatever gaps of your introduction, but also the question that Rasul was answering was, do we as Black people have enough? Are we at a state where we have enough here to get what we need from Islam, from ourselves in this country? So give a little more about yourself and answer the question. Are we at a state where we can get what we need from ourselves?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, my name is Jihad Saafir, alhamdulillah, as was stated, and I am the currently the president and imam at ISLA LA, which we transitioned. I got to shout out my elders. 1986, they had Masjid Ibadillah. It was two combined storefronts, right? And they busted down the wall in the middle of two storefronts, and they had the brothers and the sister side. So I mean that spot was popping. You talking about Muhammad Ali was there, You praying next to Mike Tyson on a given Friday. And my father was very practical. You know, people during that time, like there was, you didn't have the bigger masajid, not too far as they did today. Like today, you've had, maybe after 1986, there was the development of bigger masajid. You know, it's almost like a Walmart coming in and, taking business from the mom and pops. So the storefront was like the mom and pops. That's where you get the practical Islam. It allows for that transformation, and I mean it was beautiful. I think during that time we weren't bombarded with all these terms. We didn't know what fiqh was, tajweed was. We didn't, we knew tawheed. That's it. That's what the focus was, right? I think during that time it was beautiful. Like, my father, like I said, he was very practical, to the point, and a lot of people benefited from that. But we outgrew the storefront, so we transitioned from the storefront into a more dynamic community center model. So 2013, we came up with Islah Alay and also Islah Academy. One of the things that Dr. Ihsan Bagmi, he points out also is that the schools closing around the country in the African-American community, it negatively impacted the community as a whole. So having that school connected to the masjid was important. So we're educators too. We were able to come up with a model to serve our community that's culturally relevant. And alhamdulillah, like we have our children there. Like school's about to open back up. That's what I'm here at a fundraiser for the school. One thing that so I'm at a I'm not gonna disclose my my location, but I'm at a place that alhamdulillah, we've gathered people in the community. One thing that hurts me. So I'm here at a fund. I would love to see more of our business people here. African American community really contributing to their own progress. We have everything we need. I believe we have to be confident, fully confident in our abilities and our capabilities, as a people. And I think that for us, once we realize how capable we are as a people, we built the organization. We started off maybe about $10,000 a month budget in the storefront, right? And we've grown since then. So we have 4 transitional houses, so 2 for women formerly incarcerated and homeless, and 2 for men formerly incarcerated and homeless. We have a full-time food pantry. We have our school K through 8th. We had a high school program before COVID, but COVID, made things pretty difficult. But I'm just here to say, basically we have everything we need. I mean, like Dr. Halim, foremost scholar in psychology. You're talking about Dr. Rasul, a historian, a notable historian. Brother Jermaine, I need to go to Detroit, spend some time with you. I don't know if we met in person.
No, we haven't.
Yeah. I see your work, man. You're doing excellent, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I love your flavor, man. I love how you do things. And I would love to definitely spend some time with you in person.
Come in the city. We always say welcome home.
Most definitely.
This is where the blacks supposed to be.
That's where it started. Everyone from here has come from either Detroit or Chicago.
I know, you be working with my big bro. Oh, he be I be seeing all the work y'all be doing. That's like literally my big brother. So I mean, like, you took him under your wing and y'all out there putting it in. So mashallah, I'll be on top of it. And all the work y'all put in, I want to get some of, especially for younger brothers, get some of that model that we can put in here. I mean, we do a lot of stuff here, but reestablishment is one thing that we lacking on here that we can really get from y'all. But alhamdulillah, we gonna work on it. Mashallah. It's like a lot, but alhamdulillah.
I came out here for during a little break of somebody else's presentation,
Uh,
and I'm gonna come back on inshallah when somebody else takes a break. I mean, when somebody else gets a break.
inshallah.
I love you all, man. I'm gonna try to get back on inshallah. I gotta run up in here, but I can't. You know, I was like, man, they rescheduled this thing into where kind of cut into this time. It was hard for me. I can't say anything because we need the funding. So I'm gonna try to get back on, man. I love y'all, man. I love y'all.
We're gonna try to
We love
preserve
you.
time for you, Shakes. Just take your time, but don't take too much time. All right.
Don't take your time. Just take the time you need. Don't take your time.
Well, he left. I was gonna say, man, like normally, he'd be like, man, you got another. No, go get that money. Go
Get that paper.
because just to add on, like that's what we missing. You know, in terms of can we do this thing on our own? We have the knowledge resources, the resources with regard to knowledge and experience and all that. We don't have is the bread and the institutionalized, you know, organs to like, you know, make this thing sustainable. And I just moved out here about a year ago to Long Beach. I'm an East Coast cat. Like I told you, my whole life story. I've been on the East Coast, you know. And one of my homeboys, I used to rhyme when he said, the whole East Coast, my mama, I'm a son of a beach. But I hope I can say that. It's beach. It's anyway.
You got it, bro.
Yeah, man. I took
It's a PG-13 show, so you slip
word.
Slip on in every now and then.
I mean, I didn't. It's beach. Like we on the beach anyway.
we got you, bro.
But one of the things that I was so impressed with going to Isla, LA, and it's like 30-45 minutes from me. That's what we drive to go to Juma. It reminds me of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood in Harlem, which was like my home mosque in New York. Masjid Quba in Philly, which was like my home mosque in Philly. But there's a different kind of young energy that Imam Jihad brings to it. And alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed him and plugged him in where he has a good understanding of how to get resources. You know what I'm saying? I want to make it, well, I won't say that. He reminds me of some of our elders who did, I think, a really amazing job of being able to, like, you know, reach out to other communities. But I think in hindsight is 2020, right? He's done a better job of figuring out how to bring those resources specifically to build something, build an institution that's serving our community, you know. I don't want to say no names because I'm not trying to say it as a criticism of any of the elders, but really just lifting him up, you know. It's awesome, man, but this is what we need. We need our own spots where we can have our own schools, where we can have our own institutions like the transitional homes and whatnot. And too often, you know, the storefront masjid, you know, especially in this day and age, they disappearing. Those old African-American Orthodox Muslim or Sunni Muslim masajid are just, a lot of them are disappearing.
They disappearing. Yeah, I want to ask a question. I want to jump in something you said, but they disappearing because ain't no more youth and ain't no more builders in there, right? The black, let's say that.
You're right.
Men is in these communities at all, no more, right? So when you go everywhere you go, you see the same people over and over again, be the same 10, 15 dudes, if that. You know what I'm saying? Especially not no youth. I mean, me and Helene was youth 10 years ago, you know, but we was in our 30s, 15 years, you know what I'm saying? It was 50, you know what I'm saying? 15 years ago, I definitely wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about what's the next party I'm about to go to. You know what I'm saying? Or where they at. So
where who at?
Dang.
What you talking about?
So, you know what I'm saying? So I really wasn't thinking about that, but there's a reason why. Like, it's a reason why. It's a reason why, but at the same time, I think a lot of us now, late 30s, 40s, our responsibility is a little bit different than our elders. Yeah. So, as far as, oh Lord have mercy. So we gotta. I'm sorry. Yeah, we gotta. Man, you threw me off. But we got to find a way to be collectively find a way to utilize our resources so much the way that they did and learn from that. But as you are a historian, right? And I want to jump back on the traveling abroad thing, but we can jump into something. We can go back to that. But the as a historian, what's the good quote? How I'm gonna say this? Have you dug? Because we all got our own opinions on what happened, but as a historian, right? So you factual and data and all that stuff. Have you seen what was the reasoning behind the major discrepancies in the generation removed from the Mazdians, right? And the major discrepancy of the reason why the move from the Mazdi, that brothers is not involved and no more ever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And from a from opinion standpoint, from what you got from your research, what is the reasoning to, or what's a good way to bring them back? Because especially most of our communities are dead in the middle of the hood, so we already know what's around us, right? So a lot of times maybe it could have been a naivety from the elders naivety and some of the neglect and some of the things they had from the ignorance they had going into the deen. But what are some that you could pinpoint to bringing us back, and from a real perspective, because we dead in the middle of the hood, and what is how did that make you feel? You know what I'm saying? When you did some of that research.
Yeah. Nah, that's actually a real dope question. So, Bismillah. I would say in terms of why, like, what's the main reason? That's what I mean by discrepancy. Like, why so many young people left? So I think it's a couple things. One thing, and it's tricky, right? Because, I guess I'll answer the last question first to give context for the rest. It made me feel proud. It made me feel inspired. It made me feel comforted to learn about all these amazing, this Herculean work that our predecessors put in from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s up until recently. But it also made me feel, I guess disappointed is the word, in terms of what could have been, different missteps and missed opportunities. Again, like I said, hindsight is 20/20, so it's not even like to point finger. Like, some stuff you couldn't have known it was gonna play out like that till it played out, till it did. But at the same time, it didn't make me feel like what's the word? It didn't make me feel complacent. It didn't make me feel defeated, because I think we still in it. Like, it's not like, oh man, we done missed that opportunity. Like, there's still a lot. Like, the work that the people before us put in, they got enough right that we got a lot to work with. Now, I tried to have an approach, because I didn't want to my entry to this work wasn't trying to get a PhD. The work led me to a PhD. The PhD didn't lead me to the work. So because of that, I always had an eye, and try to maintain an eye, that I'm not just trying to, like, right now I'm working on a book, make dua for me, taking my dissertation research, turning it into a book about history of Black Muslims in New York City and around New York City, tentatively titled Black Muslim Cosmopolitanism. Somebody asked if I got any projects to promote, and that I'm working on that. You can, if you want to read my stuff, you can check me out. I did a lot of writing on Sapelo Square, Dr. Suad Abdul Khabir's website. So that's a easy place you can go to see what I've been thinking about. But I think that I tried to have the approach that I want to figure out what we did right so we can replicate it, and figure out what mistakes we made so we can avoid them, right? But it's tricky, because it's hard. A lot of times, if you talk about the mistakes and you don't talk about it with the requisite respect, people gonna come for you.
Yep.
Sometimes, even if you try to talk positively about our communities, but you don't do it in the way people like, they're gonna come for you. And I really try to open myself up to that criticism, particularly from the elders. Now, if you my age talking about, no, you know, you can miss me with that unless you don't really put in some work, right? But the elders, they, come at me, tell me what I can do differently, what I've done wrong. But that also adds some stress, right? Because then when you start pointing out some of the mistakes, people might catch feelings, So I'm always trying to walk that line of being respectful, but still being honest about things we could do differently. Now, to answer your question more directly, I think part of the reason why a lot of young people have left a lot of the masajid has to do with the fact that not just among Muslims, a lot of our problems are problems that just working class, black folk got, working class people got. And generally, I think when you make something out of nothing. When you create a community, an organization, a project, and it's your baby, and the only thing that keep it going is you, and it's like that for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's hard for you to give up the reins and pass that torch. Not because you arrogant and think you know it all, and not necessarily because you don't believe in the potential of the people coming behind you. You just don't know how to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and you find a lot of the elders, they're hanging on and they're struggling with figuring out how to pass that torch. There's also ideological stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to
keep it a whole buck, because that you already know some of that.
I ain't trying to throw no shade on nobody, especially for my.
Okay, go ahead.
I ain't trying to throw no shade at nobody, but the Salafi movement did a number on a lot of our communities, and I spent 6 years of my life in Philly, and it helped me unlearn some of my sort of anti-Salafi bias, because I realized most people just trying to be Muslim the best way they know how. You know what I'm saying? That's number one. And number two, there's certain qualities about the Salafis that I dig. They have an audaciousness. Like Salafis, some of the only Muslims I know go on the Ivy League campus, sisters in niqab, brother in the throat, like they don't care. And I love that, you know. But this ideological sort of, the Salafi movement globally has a tendency toward patricide, toward teaching people that what your folks was on was wrong. Yeah. It did it in Africa. West Africa is doing it. It's done it here, where suddenly you got a generation of folks who they learn an expression of Islam that makes them look back on their predecessors and say, well, they just didn't know what they was doing. They might still have love and respect for those people, but they're like, well, we got to get our cues from somewhere else. And I'm not saying that as an absolute statement. That's just a tendency that I've seen. Yeah, and I feel comfortable saying it because when I talk to people that know more than me, they say it's not just here. It did the same thing in other parts of the world too.
Detroit it was, but we didn't get hit with the Salafi. It's been very basic. We just had a lot of segregation, but it was just, yeah, we never had the Salafi tried for like a year, and then I guess it was too Sufi. But you know what I'm saying? So the hard bodies was the Sufis here, so it wasn't too much of that. It was just a lot of just the old ways of niggerdom crossing over to the deen. So
now you're making me feel comfortable. You said niggerdom, so I know I can get greasy.
Oh yeah, man, talk that.
I think the Salafi thing is really particularly an East Coast phenomenon. Yeah. So I think I felt it more than I think that's a good point. And that's one of the things I try to bring out in the research is that the history of Islam in America is not the same everywhere. Right. It's different in different places. So I think it's that you know the difficulty of giving the reins up. I think there's also a way in which folks who built some of our strongest, most robust Black Muslim institutions, particularly in the 60s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they had a different vibe that I think was healthier in a lot of ways. Right. Because those folks was about building communities that were based on families. They celebrated arts and culture. It was jazz musicians coming through. But something happened in the 60s and 70s where it was like, we got to have this movement, politicized, you know, and it warped the perspective in a way where there was so much zeal. That is the reason why Islam became such a huge force in Black urban spaces around the country. So we appreciate it, but it also made being Muslim not sustainable. It's like a rigidity that just, you know, so if I'm just a brother or sister who I find Islam compelling, I want to get down, but I'm not perfect yet. Like I had a brother who, you know, good friend of mine, who we were kicking it, and he was, you know, interested in Islam, and I asked him, what's like the barrier? And he said, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to be that religious. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to say I'm never going to take a drink again, whatever. And I told him, well, that's fine. You know, it's a journey, you know, like Dave Chappelle said, just because you're Muslim don't mean you're going to be the best Muslim, you know, but it's better at least have it. Don't you know, 2 days after this brother takes Shahada, he making Fajr on time, you know? So sometimes just that specter of I have to be perfect prevents people from jumping in. One of the biggest, you know, so that's one. Yeah. And then also I interviewed an elder from the Darul Islam community, which I think created the most robust political economic platform that any Sunni Muslim community has ever created in America, you know, with schools and businesses and all of that. And this imam, he was very, you know, real. He was like, one of the things that we did wrong or we made a mistake on is when brothers and sisters from the Black Power movement, cultural nationalists, when they came and took Shahada, if they wasn't super on it, we cut them jokers off. So y'all ain't serious about no deen. So that's how you hear all these stories about all of these like prominent Muslim artists or black political folks who had a period where they was Muslim.
And then they left.
It dipped off. It wasn't no space for them. And when you look at, this is something we can learn, I think, from immigrant Muslim or overseas Muslim communities. They have a space for the brother or the sister that don't get religious till they 50, right? And maybe in their 20s and 30s, they out making paper, and they sending some of that paper to the masjid. And the community is not shunning them, so they can come back. You know what I'm saying? So when they grow into religious practice, I'm not saying that that's an ideal, but we have a way of which if you ain't all the way what we think you need to be, you can't come.
We have zero balance. We have zero balance. It's a bullying tactic too in there. But yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, but Rasul, there's a few things. Dr. Russell, there's a few things. The reason
you ain't got to put doctor, I'm cool.
no, I'm doing it for the community. They need. I know.
Mashallah, they got to learn right.
But the thing is, the reason that certain people are kept in those pockets is because of culture. It's not out of Islam.
That's a good point.
They protect each other.
Yeah. They're actually related to each other. So you're forced by blood to keep a space. It's not because they're these tolerant Muslims. So
you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I want to differentiate there. So that's one thing.
That's an important point. That's an important point. I'm glad you made that.
I'm saying, like I put decades into immigrant Muslim community, so I could see nuances. The other thing is that life for our elders and why our elders kind of having a hard time to shift. I mean, life in and of itself forces you to shift your role. You're a father, then you become a grandfather, like just by just life. You know what I mean? You have to recreate yourself. Your relationship with your grandchild is not the same, as a relationship with your own child. So what I'm saying is that some of these imams and some of our elders really had a hard time stepping out of that frontline building 1970, 1980, early 90 role and couldn't recreate themselves. Utilize the relationships that they've had for decades, utilize history, utilize some bodies, some organizing boards, things like that would make it a lot easier for those who have the stamina, who have that energy and that skill set and ability to take it to a whole nother level. You sit and talk with them and they're still like, I'm the imam, or I'm the, this is, and it's very hard it's very good dichotomous. So I, sometimes as a youth, and that's a question I'll actually not just pose to you, but, Jermaine too, because we always talk about that black hole generation, the generation into the masjid. So it forces some of us, I guess, who are coming into the 40s now, and a little younger to grow up a lot quicker and even try to create these bodies. So I'm gonna ask you, obviously Jermaine's gonna jump in, but do you feel like you had to grow up quicker in your community to I know everybody feels, but there seems just to be something, and maybe again, it might just be a regional thing, but do you feel like you had to take on a whole lot more, like somebody maybe a little above should have did some, or you have to do a whole lot more?
That's deep.
It's because we might be an exceptional person. So I'm just wondering, do you feel like you're having to play catch up in the grand scheme of things for our community, maybe?
Man, y'all asking some good questions, man. I never heard a question like that. Never thought about that. But I would say yes. But it's funny because Never had that question before. Never really thought about it in that way. I mean, in some ways, I feel like as we get into our late 30s, early 40s, and whatnot, it's kind of natural, like you're saying, for us to step up and play a certain kind of role, and the elders to be in a role of advising and giving guidance. One of the communities that I studied a lot was, or inshallah, a good amount was Sheikh Dawood and Mother Khadija's community in Brooklyn, which I'm learning had a close connection to some folks in Detroit. But I thought it was really interesting that the Sheikh, and this kind of gets at the previous question too, because the Darul Islam movement was founded by folks who used to attend Sheikh Dawood and Mother Khadija's masjid, who left in the early 60s. And when I would ask people why, I would always get these kind of roundabout answers. Nobody really gave me a straight answer. And what I've really kind of came to conclude, my own sense of it, is that Sheikh Dawood was just really, really an elder. Like, he was born in 1891 in Grenada. So by 62, he would have been, do the math, 72? So here you got an elder who even though he came of age in Harlem, spent his formative years in the Caribbean, migrated when he was in like maybe his early 20s, had built this community that was based around, folks who were working 9 to 5s, building their families, and now suddenly you got this younger generation of cats in the wake of the Nation of Islam, in the wake of all the black Sunni Muslim activity in New York that created a sort of cultural consciousness around Islam. And they're like, maybe we need to do things radically differently. Maybe I need to stop wearing Western clothes. Maybe I need to stop going to their school. Maybe I need 2 and 3 wives. I don't know. Maybe I just need to do something radically different than what people do here. And these are people in their early 20s. And it was just friction. And it was just like, some of the folks that I interviewed from the Dar, I think out of humility, they weren't trying to be like, yo, he was just too old, ran us off, right? But that disconnect, I think, hurt both sides. Sheikh Dawood and Mother Khadija's community, the building is there, but the folks who worship there, it ain't us no more. And on the flip side, the Dar, I think they would have really benefited as those brothers got into their mid-20s, early 30s, from having like the black Muslim elder to say, okay, this is how you do this. Okay, you kicking it with the brothers from Pakistan, cool, but not, but do it this way. You know what I'm saying? But to answer your question, Dr. Halim, I think for me, it's funny, man. Yeah, there's times where I feel like there's more. Like, I don't know if I can say I had to grow up particularly fast, because in my 20s, I wasn't really connected to any particular community that I felt like I had to like take ownership of. I kind of had a free ride because of that regional kind of, I went to Harlem. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all in. But there was a way in which I kind of didn't grow up in any particular mosque. So I never had people calling me, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. I kind of was able to be a free radical for a bit until I started plugging in a little bit more. I started studying with a brother in New York City, Sheikh Amin Abdul Awul, studied fiqh. He started putting me to work teaching. I went to Senegal, connected with the Tijani community, became really active with the Tijanis in New York as a member of that community. But there are ways in which now I think I do kind of feel like, man, I feel like I got a lot on my plate, and I'm not necessarily trying to outsource it. Right. And I guess this goes back to like, now maybe I can have some empathy for the elders, right? Because it's not that I particularly want to do all of this, and it's not that I feel like I'm so good at it. It's more so, it's like in the Avengers when Thanos is like, man, I keep sending people to get these stones, bumping, I'm gonna do it myself. You know what I'm saying? Because you start seeing, stuff not going the way you want it to go, and you start to feel like, well, I guess I gotta step up and take that role. And I also think, I mean, this is the mark of a good leader, is being able to replicate yourself, being able to create other leaders. And replicate yourself don't mean make another you, but replicate somebody who can do that job,
Are many other yous?
Say again?
Are many other yous?
Or many other yous, exactly. And we have people in our community, alhamdulillah, some of the elders that have succeeded in that way on a level, right? But I think that's kind of what we've been missing. So there's a lot of, I think what I would say is there's a lot of stuff that I feel like I'm in a position now with some of my peers, and brothers and sisters that are a little bit older than me, trying to figure out that I'm like, this should already be figured out. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do I have to figure this out? And alhamdulillah that I don't have resentment to the elders for not figuring out, but some people do. I remember talking to a elder brother, Muslim brother in New York, one of my uncles I got a lot of love for. And he said to me, I had to come to this realization that we dropped the ball because my kids we start having real conversations, and I saw there was some resentment. They was like, Dad, you didn't leave this for us. You didn't do this for us. You was out doing for the masjid, and we had to figure out a lot of stuff in terms of our personal life and in terms of our Muslim community life kind of on our own. You know what I'm saying? Because you didn't leave the institutions on a community level, and you didn't really model it for us in the home. So again, I think it's important that we don't kind of like just vilify the elders, because a lot of them was trying to figure stuff out without a lot of guidance. I have a very good relationship with my father, alhamdulillah. My father was an orphan, grew up in Jersey City in the hood. And, because of that, I think we have a different level of frankness with each other. Well, he'll just say, son, ain't nobody showed me how to do this. Ain't nobody showed me how to keep a marriage together. Ain't nobody showed me how to, you know what I'm saying? So I'm able to kind of like, all right, I'm not blaming him, but there are still things that we now are in a position we got to kind of figure out for ourselves when other people don't necessarily have to figure out for themselves. They got a kind of transitional intergenerational memory thing. So
yeah, I want to jump on that because again, like I think we all grew up around multicultures. You know what I'm saying? Especially being Muslim. I think that's one of the best things about growing up Muslim is that you normally would grow up around different cultures, even if some of us grew up directly in the hood. But I think being Muslim, it kind of gave us a universal language to. Cause I moved out to the burbs, I ain't miss a beat. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I think you can like pick up the universal language, but. One thing is I went through phases of resentment for other races. I'm like, man, they got everything going on and we can't never get nothing right. You know what I'm saying? But now I'm older and seeing like the 40-year-old views is a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? Now I appreciate some of those, you know what I'm saying? But I ain't never going to be no immigrant butt kisser. But
that's right. Better not be. Because there's some stuff they ain't got figured out. We thought they did. And then you kick them like, y'all got it twisted. I'm not even
nowhere near like into religion. Like I'm a religious person, but I'm not super like I'm be going on my way to be up under some shake all the time. But I know I have enough teachers and sheikhs to learn. So I be talking to them like they don't be knowing nothing. Like they don't know nothing. Like even people from their own country don't know. And I'm like, how do you not know this? All the time, talk to my neighbor, they don't know nothing they're talking about. So to say that,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm saying like, well, I think we do have to. It have to be a transparency in our communication with some of the elders, and sometimes it's got to be uncomfortable because I think even when like the Dar, like again, we didn't have the Salafi thing. We had the Dar, we had Tabligh, it was a lot of neglect. It's a lot of hurt kids in their 30s and 40s right now from seeing their mama being, let's say their mama allowing men after men to marry them over and over again. You know what I'm saying? And seeing that caused so many problems. Seeing, you know what I'm saying, that families, 5 brothers with 4 wives, running through sisters, having them in abandoned buildings. You know what I'm saying, calling it Islam, all that stuff. Like we gotta be written. Some of the elders don't want to hear that, but that's real. It's 100,000% real. And every time we got a little group called BAM. I don't know, y'all know about it. Born and raised. People going back and forth talking about their experience growing up Muslim. But these are real life situations. I think sometimes we get so political. I don't care. Like they're gonna have to hear this real. They have to hear what we experience, right? And growing up Muslim in the 80s. And 90s, during the crack age, you know what I'm saying, and during a hustling age, and a lot of ox start kicking in doors, start gangsters, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's a fact. And it wasn't, and then none of us grew up saying like, oh, I'm gonna be a gangster when I grow up. We always wanted to be like everybody else, but we had no, you go to school by a certain age, you go to school, they telling you can't even go to school no more.
Exactly.
Yo, I was trying to explain this to my wife. Whose parents are immigrants, right? She didn't grow up, she grew up here, but her parents are not from here. and I was telling her it's ill because I'm a professor now, right? And the people that I most look up to are like rappers, gangsters, dope, you know, maybe some athletes, but I wasn't ever that athletic. I was a music cat, you know what I'm saying? So like now, I was telling one of my homies that I like the show Blackish, and we kind of chuckled, but he kind of clowned me about it a little bit. But I think the reason I vibe with it is because at its core, it's a story about it was a story about a black family, but the father is like somebody who's now trying to transition. He's transitioning to a higher tax bracket, and he's trying to figure out, how do I create a better life for my kids, but at the same time get them, some of the things that, you know, good came from my experience, a lot of which that had to do with the struggle, you know, and I relate to that. Like, you know, I remember when I hit high school and my father started having some real talk with me, and I realized my father was a gangster. He was a gangster who decided, I don't want to be no gangster no more. I want to raise a family out, you know. And he was in a different situation because the gangsterism came from the community. You know, got love. This is the same for the nation, for the dog, right? Got love for the nation, not dogging the nation, but the nation was like, okay, you go to school, you go sell them papers, you go kick in the door. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And my father got pegged into kicking the door, and he's like, I'm not trying to do this forever. You know what I'm saying? So the good thing about it is when my friends start romanticizing gangsterism, I'm like, y'all cats is clowns, man. I know I ain't never gonna be the kind of gangster my father was, because that's just not, like, why? I'm not doing that to myself. I got a different avenue. I'm gonna take some of that, you know, some of that swag, some of that life experience, you know. But yeah, it's ill because we just, man, and again, it's not just a Muslim thing, right? This is the struggle of being working class black folk, you know. But then how do you create sustainable models? And then if we're honest about it, part of the reason why Islam is so popular is because we had so many gangs of Muslims. You know? So
us in the streets was the ones providing the because everybody else is in the masjid or somewhere trying to be they from whatever country they thought they sheikh was from. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
But I want to ask. I don't even know if a study's been or anything been done like this, but it's connecting with what we're saying and talking about. Do you feel like, you know, what Jermaine talking about with, you know, crack in the 80s, obviously had huge impact on family structure, you know, going through things like that. Do you feel like collectively as black folks, I don't know if there's studies about it or anything you bumped into, but does an unstable family structure have impact on our community knowledge level?
Right. I wish Imam Jihad. Yeah.
Does that have an impact on people just basically being able to get to the amount of Islamic foundation that is known, that is practiced? Or I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but do you feel like a more stable family structure in the community means for more growth in terms of learning and perpetuating, you know, just making more sustainable Islamic families, scholars, people? Or you feel like it doesn't matter as much?
No, I think so. I definitely think so. I wish Imam Jihad was here to speak to that, because that's he I think he does more of that work, both as an academic and as an imam, right? But I definitely think that has a lot to do with it. I don't think that's all of it, you know. I don't. I remember we had Nikki Giovanni came to speak when we was in undergrad, and somebody asked her a question about the problem with the black family, and she was like, "What problem with the black family?" And everybody was kind of like, "Huh?" Because we used to a certain kind of rhetoric about what black people ain't doing, and she was like,
"Here it is."
She was like, "Ain't no problem with the black family that I see that can't be solved by writing a check." You know what I'm saying? And as I've gotten older, I've realized, like, it ain't like white communities got these squeaky clean family things going on.
Definitely don't.
And the point you made, it ain't like immigrant communities necessarily got it. And to the point that they do, it's not because of religion. It's because of something else. It's because of a cultural experience, an immigrant experience. You know, I sometimes we've talked about what would it be like to immigrate to another country. You go to another place. If we go to the Gulf tomorrow, it's like we got. We gonna band together with the other few folks from where we from, and that's gonna be the crew. And if you
like
beef with them, we're gonna figure it out. They're talented, yeah.
Like the talented 10th, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it, though, just from the simple standpoint of when your family structure is not intact. How are you going to be able to oversee those mechanisms of, I guess, what you call socialization? You know, I was fortunate. My parents split. My mother's not Muslim. I was fortunate because my mother was so pro-Islam. She's one of those black folk that got a that cultural affinity for Islam. You know, that's just like she was just down with raising me Muslim, and my parents both saw. And my mother, to her credit, it was really her. She was like, I might not want to be with your father, but he ain't no bad dude. He's not abusive or nothing like that. He's a good dad. You need to stay tight with him. She didn't do what some people do and say, well, nah.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. You know, so I got to give my mother, my non-Muslim mother, a lot of the credit for me being raised Muslim, you know. And on the flip side, my father, he didn't say, well, this didn't work out, and you know they had to move down south, so you know I got to just focus. Nah, he was like, you know, I mean, he was an orphan, right? So he was like, for a long time, I have two sisters that you know came later from a second marriage, but it was like, you know, he all I got. This little man right here, you know. So I'm by hook or by crook, I'm gonna give him all I got to give. So I was really fortunate that my parents not staying together didn't really negatively impact me being able to get all of that from my pops. But we know people who parents stay together, but because of different dynamics, you know, like you said, maybe has to do with people not having the right approach to polygyny or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You be in the same city, not even same state, same city. And, you know, people feeling like, you know, pops wasn't really present like he could have been, you know. And it's deep because I remember like this, I'm hesitant to talk about it, but y'all done made me feel so comfortable that I'm just going to say it, you know.
Good vibes, brother. It's your word. We keep it a trail. We keep it a trail. Yeah.
Because we got to have spaces where we can talk about it. I remember meeting black Muslim men that I thought were awesome. And in some cases, I met their kids, and their kids also said dad was awesome. And then I met black Muslim men that I thought was awesome. And sometimes their kid was like, yeah, he was awesome to everybody else. He was awesome to the community, but I didn't have access to him like that. And I had to really sit back and think about that. I mean, when I got married, you know, me and my wife had a conversation. She was like, yo, all of these men that we admire, Malcolm, Nelson Mandela, you know, and so on and so on. For various reasons, they wasn't there for their kids, whether they got killed, whether they got locked up, whether they was, you know, just deep in the struggle. And she was like, yeah, I know we love all these brothers and this is who you aspire to be, but don't do that to me, you know. And in that moment, it was like, whoa, like it had a different impact. Like, wow, like, okay, so just being a present dad and holding a family together, keeping the rent paid in the lights, this is like, okay, I got to factor that in. I can't just... And that goes back to what you asked before, Dr. Halima. Like, did we have to grow up? Like, I don't know if it was that we had to grow up fast or maybe we just had a lot on our plate because we care about building this community thing. I don't know. But that, when she said that to me, it was like something flipped, something switched. Like, okay, so a part of your calculus for building this community is how do you keep your family good? How do you create a space where your kids want to get this Islam from you and you have that impact in their life, you know, even if, you know, God forbid, you know, don't work out with your wife, you know what I'm saying? Like, stuff happens. That ain't no stuff happen. You can't foresee that, right? But you want to at least be able to have a situation where you have that relationship with your children to pass on, like, even just as simple as this is how you pray, love the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even you just that. If you can't do nothing else, you know what I'm saying? Then you know, inshallah, they might bump their head, but they're gonna come back to it. But if you don't have the space to give them that,
so I mean, maybe it could have been we just some go get. I think a lot of times a lot of leadership is placed, especially in the black community, is based off just people just see something. I mean, Imam like his Halim's well, I call him Pop Imam's Imam Abdul Alamin. You know what I'm saying? He said, you see something, do it. I think a lot of us you see something to get done, just do it.
Do it.
So a lot of us we saw something that needed to get done. So I think the approach I think a lot of us just go getters, right? And so that approach, that's natural leadership compared to those who you got some who seek it, and a lot of times the real can always pick up on them. So they I'm gonna say piggyback, don't camel, they piggyback off the work of those who really put in that work. You know what I'm saying? They piggyback off those putting that work, and that's a lot of clash you come in too. And you can go back, the history of the Dar and stuff like that. A lot of times that can't play the part of split too. People coming in and trying to clean up their work and take different pros and say, you know what I'm saying, they think they bigger than this other cat, and they not, you know what I'm saying, so they're not respecting the work. That always happened with men. I remember talking to Amir.
That's always happened with men. Yeah.
Amir Suleiman was kicking and we was like, man, it's always something with men where danger is always it's always in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it can always get dangerous with men. You know what I'm saying? Even though no matter the intent, how many like take a strong man to not take it there, like real strong men to not take it there. But normally with weak men, danger is always a part of it. So saying that, in your studies, right? And I want to go back to the abroad thing. I have a major problem with the way that we revere shuyukh that's not from America. You know what I'm saying? But don't treat ours like we treat our imams and our pioneers. Like, again, regardless, from growing up around different cultures, they are messed up like everybody, and nobody is more messed up than other people. We just ours is just like we don't have a house. You know what I'm saying? They got houses out there.
We don't got that safety net. Yeah, we got that safety net.
You know what I'm saying? They got big, beautiful houses, the pod, they crap. We ain't got no house, so they looking at us outside like, man, they crazy. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, like, from your studies, and that kind of be, I go to these phases of Islam where I be embarrassed by Muslims sometimes. I can't stand them. I'll be like, man, especially black Sunnis, because black Sunnis particularly, right? So from go back to the
Leaves that don't get me started.
You know what I'm saying? So go back then we got to go into a promo, but I want you to answer this question quickly. Abroad, like, from your studies, right, and seeing that we have beautiful people that need to be revered just as much as anybody else's should, right?
Oh yeah.
If I'm feeling that way, and you being a scholar, you know what I'm saying, I'll just be reading. I just love history, right? And I love my people, right? But you being the actual person who's like, basically, this is part of your job. You know what I'm saying? How like the approach to that? Like, how can we show that type of reverence to our beautiful leaders and scholars, and not be so discredit others, but at the same time, how can we uplift and show that same type of reverence to our own?
Yeah, well, it starts with just in your backyard. It's been really hard. This is the second time in a row that I've talked and touched on these kind of subjects. And it's hard because I don't really like talking bad about these people that I benefited so much. Not just talking bad, but being like critical, I think it's about what people undertook. One of the reasons there's so many stories, one of the things that you find is a national organization is always going to be harder to run than a local organization, right? Mm-hmm. So, for instance, groups like the Darul Islam Movement, the Nation of Islam, these are national organizations. So, yeah, like you said, danger is always present with men. Yeah, it's going to be some joker somewhere in some city who just is out of it, right? We deal with it, on the Tasawwuf tip, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a part of a community that's the largest religious organization in African history, on the African continent ever. Some say 120 million strong. So, it's going to be somebody in the mix that's just bugged out. Just make everybody look bad. You know what I'm saying? So I do want to recognize that. But in terms of dang, I lost my train of thought trying to give.
No, man, don't do that. That's what I'm saying. Like, you You need to go.
Oh, you said yeah. You said as a historian, yeah. So I think it starts with just personal relationships. You know, one of the reasons why I think a lot of these elders shared their story with me is because I think they could see that I genuinely cared, and I genuinely had love and appreciation for what they had to give me. And I mean, a lot of stuff, man. You know, I can't take credit for. Allah is just the best of planners. I at one point in time thought maybe I want to go overseas. I wanted to go to like somewhere on the African continent, you know, to study. But I wanted to go overseas and do that, and that's just not what Allah had in the cards for me. Where He put me was in New York City at the feet of these old black men and women,
right,
who did the work,
right,
and then started opening doors for me to be around some of the shuyukh from other places. And I realized, wow, what we got is
right here
is actually more impressive and more useful than what folks from other places got to give. And I'm gonna go in the Sufi direction real quick. I met this brother, white Muslim author, who is a Sufi, and he asked me once. He said, "Have you met any American or Black American awliya in your research? Have you met anybody that you would say is like a spiritual giant, you know?" And I was just like, yeah, I met a lot. And then I started thinking about not only the work they did, but, you know, I had people that shared some of their spiritual experiences with me, man. Stuff that you read in the books from people who lived 500 years ago. Right. We got people in Detroit, New York, Philly, South that have experienced that stuff. And so one of the things I'm struggling with is how much of that am I gonna put in the book? If I start putting some of that stuff, you're like, wait a minute now, is this history or is this, you know? But I do want to put a little taste of it so people can know, like, the level of sincerity, the level of effort, and the level of knowledge that our folks got is such that we've produced that. We've had those kinds of experiences. The thing is, though, because we're not 500 years removed, we also know the challenges some of those people got.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We also know, you know what I'm saying? Like and out of etiquette, I don't want to start saying, well, you know, we had this scholar who lived 500 years ago but had this issue. This scholar that had this issue. But if you look at the Sahaba, for instance, you know, we know of a Sahaba who was alcoholic. We know Sahabas whose kids was committing zina. You know, there's a story that said Umar radiallahu anhu, one of his sons, you know, committed zina, got flogged 40 lashes, and then he gave him another 40 because he felt like he was his son, so he should know better. You know? So I think in terms of how you give reverence, I mean, it's hard, man, because people only know what they experience. If I didn't get a chance to get to know these elders in their story and then get a chance to see the niggerdom of non-black immigrant foreign Muslim scholars, then maybe I'd still be, my head might be in the class. I mean, I also don't think I would be, because my pops kind of like put that in my DNA. Like, you ain't, you know, kind of like you, like I ain't into that, you know, revering people from other places. I ain't never been into that. I ain't never had a point in my life where I was kind of like, you know, the Arab or Pakistani, you know, Muslims, Islam is colder. I never had that, right? But a lot of us have, you know. And I think for me, like, I think the way to kind of like remedy that is learning the history, right? Learning the history. Because if you start to learn the history, you start to realize that, you know, there's no place in the world where Islam has been where people were pristine and perfect. You know, after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, you know, in the early generations, people was fighting and killing and all kind of crazy stuff. You had false prophets popping up. So there's no pristine kind of situation. You know, if you study the history of the early, Islam was in Africa. Oh, I cut out for a minute. Islam was in Africa and had a healthy environment in Africa before it was in Syria or Lebanon or a lot of these other places, right? It's just the history. And you start to find out that these places that people have this, you know, we talk about, I think we might have to segue in a minute because you mentioned the sponsors, but I'll say this point before we go. You know, we talk a lot now about this LGBT stuff because it's just in the world, right? You can't really avoid it. You start studying the history, you realize you had Muslim rulers that were known to do stuff that we would all, well, I'm not going to put this on you, but that I would say is not in line with a normative view of what's permissible in Islam, right? But you know that, I mean, so that is what it is, and we could talk about that and how that's instructive for how we might deal with it today. But my point is just that we have this notion that the Muslims from other places or who lived in other times were so perfect, and they weren't. And if you start to study, you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, they weren't. And then you start to hang out with your uncles and your aunties, and you start to realize, dang, y'all are dope. Like, y'all did that. And it just, I think that kind of, starting from that place, it kind of rewires your thinking, right? And so maybe one of the things that some of us who already have gone through that process have to do is just amplify those stories.
Yes.
So we can keep like the new convert, not even, I don't think it's so much an issue with those of us that's born in the deen, because we just kind of grow up with a different experience. But the person who sees Islam as something so perfect and pristine that they want to get down, like helping them decouple their love for Islam with an infatuation for people from somewhere else.
That's
you know?
right.
And that's a deep psychological thing that I don't vilify people for coming in with that kind of problem, but it's a problem.
That's playing. Sell out. No, but we go. I mean, like, we got some beautiful sponsors. We want to touch in. We got a dope. Always, you can keep showing this video to a burnout. A commercial break from our sponsor Browndages, and then we also go into Design Pro Web Solution.
Sending love in every shade of brown to you. Sending love in every shade of brown to you. Sending love in every shade of brown to you. Sending love in every shade of brown, shade of brown.
They say the first cutter be the one that sets the tone, to add pressure to a lesser known flesh and bone, to look different than the picture shown, and to be a rebel means you're not about to settle till you get your own. This one's for all my outside of the box thinkers, with bumblebee stingers and paper cut fingers and scrapes on their kneecaps. I know the pain lingers. The healthy way to heal a broken wing is to give it love.
Sending love in every shade of brown to you. Sending love in every shade of brown to you. Sending love in every shade of brown to you. Sending love in every shade of brown, shade of brown.
Yeah, the thing about community is how proud it is. We understand what well balanced and what grounded is. And love is the hinge that heals and mends, conceals and blends, and keeps us all covered. That's Browndages. We say it's all black when it's all love, and it's brown when it's all good. Browndages, we help heal the hurt. So put us on. I said you gotta put us on.
Yo, can y'all still hear me?
Alhamdulillah.
Can y'all still hear me? Dr. Hamid, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. I had to switch the headphones.
That was beautiful. Alhamdulillah. Always, and you know, the Browndages on the level up. We ain't gonna name drop all the names. You know, Beyonce, Lupita, Younger, all these people that that showed the love on Instagram and other platforms and everything like that. So, alhamdulillah, you know, the Browndages. You can't, as the almighty saying goes, you can't put a Band-Aid
on 100 years of racism.
You know what I'm saying? You can't do it.
Who's that? Where's that saying come from?
That's their logo. That's their motto.
Wow. Yo, that's awesome, yo. I'm about to go get some Browndages like tomorrow. My son just had a little scrape. And I was geeked because he didn't want like the regular color beige bandage. He was like, let me get a green one. Let me get a wrap. Like, word. And now, yeah, I got to get him some Browndages, man. That was awesome.
I got the
people.
I got the caramel. So I want to.
We got to shout out Design Pro too. One more.
All the
Make sure. Look at our beautiful, gorgeous, amazing logo.
You see right over up right here.
To my right, and that could be your. I don't know who right that is. Our right.
Yeah. Yep. I'm right there.
You see the beautiful silhouettes of them beautiful brothers.
Yeah.
Design Pro Web Solutions is our go-to for web design and logos. They are lit.
Made y'all look
So they,
amazing.
yep, Facebook and Instagram page and website. They designed Dr. Halim's logo for Halim and Associates.
Naeem and Associates,
You know, they banging. And matter of fact, they did brownages. So our man Ashir Kirk, him and his wife, him and his family, a beautiful black family that's putting in that work. And he got a team of all pro designers that's putting it in. And again, it's black owned and operated. You know, but that don't mean that we not looking for non-black sponsors. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Good Vibes Good Brother, please email us at goodvibesgoodbrothers@gmail.com. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all support Design Pro Web Solutions. Go look them up. If they need, if you need anything, just tell them Big Fresh sent you. And they're gonna look out for you. And if you want to donate to Good Vibes Good Brothers, look at the ticker at the bottom. You know, just throw your donation. Definitely, with support is always needed, and make dua for us and spend a check. So, alhamdulillah.
We got. I think Imam Jihad gonna have to come on a part 2 of the episode. They got him so tied up, and it just goes into, you know, we was really trying hard to do that. So that's a little update with him. But I wanted to tag in and address the point you were just talking about earlier, Rasul and Jermaine. I think a lot of the big gap of reverence that you see to other scholars or the people outside of the country and towards ourselves, that big gap has a lot to do with a lack of black love. It's got a lot. You can't. We've been it took a very long time to hardwire us. I sometimes I say psychologically, but I am a psychologist. I don't have to say psychologically anymore. A lot of people use it so much because they want. But it took a long time to mentally hardwire us to value everything else but self. And so it comes out in so many ways, and that's one of the ways we see. You see some of these random brothers and how they talking about sheikhs in Saudi Arabia, for example. Oh, there's nothing wrong there. Like, look, you dead and nine, nothing's wrong with, over there. But, quick to say something about, this scholar, this sheikh, or this imam, or this whoever over here putting in work actually out of love and sincerity and everything for the community. So when I see a disparity like that, when I see a lack of respect towards self and towards our own people, especially when both have Islamic knowledge, then I usually see someone with an issue with loving self in a certain way. The other thing that a number of cultures, and I'll even speak, Sufi perspective, and some of the other, West African countries, which are predominantly Sufi countries, many of them are, Rasul, is that one of the things they can really learn from Black spirituality, and we have these ideas and theologies in academia called Black religion and obviously Black theology. One of the things that can really be taken from our Black Muslim people spiritually is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
It's resilience, and resilience, and I mean real resilience. Real resilience. Like, most people who come over here and are presented with the opportunities to sin, with the opportunities to indulge in their own desires, with the opportunities to do whatever the heck they want to do.
That's right.
They fold like an omelet on Sunday morning. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
They fold. Okay, they fold. Like a poker hand, a weak poker hand. They fold. Okay, so what I'm saying is that we have embodied and developed a way Jermaine know the young little ox better than me. Dudes, little kids, 13, 14, 15 years old, came up nothing but streets and dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
They will go to the I ain't gonna put that. I seen kids hop off to the masjid after getting shot last week to Juma.
What Freeway say?
You know what I'm
Still
saying?
managed to make it to the
All the
masjid, the
kids,
bad
walking-
kids.
Yep.
Yeah, bad kids, but they at the masjid. I know where you hear what I'm saying? Like, because and I've seen I'm not saying that, I'm sure the world's big and so are cultures and things like that, but man, at the level for as long, for as intense, I just haven't seen too many places and people who have that level of resilience, and they're just gonna still hold on to one little drop of what they call Islam. So I think a lot of people, a lot of cultures can learn from our level of resilience, because the most corrupted, deviant form of Western civilization that is taking over the world,
That's right.
this is it.
That's
This
right.
started, and we're 1% of we're going toe to toe with it. We're going
Man.
toe to toe with it.
Subhanallah, you
Taking
talking
every front and still swinging, going
Yeah,
toe to
man.
swinging
Yeah,
back
man.
with their language, with their culture, with their money, with their clothes. We take it, shift it, bow. Like we're still. And I don't think another culture can do it.
Nah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's why a lot of young people. I didn't mean to cut you off because
I'm good now. I'm
you
good.
got me ready to say amen, because I mean it's real, and that's why so many of the folks who come to this country, whose parents come to this country, grow up here, if they don't fold or become like, Islam is like kind of just it becomes a part of just like an ethnic identity, right? Oh, my parents and them, but they ain't really in it. Or just they become white, right? Like they try to ingratiate themselves in white culture. If they don't do that, they tend to just have a real serious, transformative, cathartic engagement with black folk. This is the rock they swim to. Like, and it's funny because a lot of people, my family, my circle, this is kind of like a lot of people I looked up and saw myself around at some point. I'm like, wow, I'm a lot of brown folk. But I think part of it's because I didn't grow up in a mixed. I grew up around black Muslims, right? And then I grew up around black non-Muslims. And so for me, I've always been kind of like, if you down, you can come kick it,
Right.
But if you're not down, we're not gonna tolerate that. You know what I'm saying? And I think you hit it on the head when you talk about that self-hate. And I don't want to say this because this sounds real self-congratulatory. And so, anybody out there that know me, if you want to bring me down to earth, you can. I ain't tripping, right? But I feel like my pops just did it. Both my parents just did a good job of making sure that like, I didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? Like they was
Talk about that, bro.
I grew up. I ain't never looked like, bro. I remember hearing the Malcolm speech where he says, why look at that old pale thing to my white folks, like who is that to be comparing yourself to? Your skin looked like gold compared to his, and everybody's like, yeah, yay. And I remember thinking to myself, oh wow, there were people who didn't hear that or didn't know that until Malcolm said it, and they was grown. Like that's how I saw the world at 4. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that having that kind of perspective that you just shared, Dr. Halim, of like, okay, we have an issue of self-hate. And this is one of the reasons why, groups like the Nation of Islam, the Moorish Science Temple, the 5% Nation, like, is always, I grew up born and raised, like you say, born and raised Muslim, Sunni Muslim, right? But once I got old enough, when I was real young, I remember my pops didn't really talk about the nation. It was kind of, well, that's not the kind of Muslim we are. Then when I was like 12, 13, 14, coming to the house, listening to Wu-Tang, Capone and Noriega, like, what's this? He started dropping. Yep. That was my favorite joint growing up.
Hey, that's you know what? Growing up as a Muslim, when you went, because remember as kids, it was always that. I ain't going to cut you off, but it was always
good.
Malachi York Muslim thing. You know what I'm saying? You had Kwame, here and there, and you had like, you know what I'm saying, but it was 5% of Malachi York. And so when you talk about even though they're talking about jacking somebody for their coke, you know what I'm saying? He said, I jumped the blue car and screamed, Alhamdulillah, Allah. You know?
Fast for a month. Makes a lot in the truck. We say, stay in the car. Stop Allah body set. Yo, Allahu Akbar. Now I'm set. Yo, that was my and when I tell you, a big part of how I was able to maintain my identity and a positive sense of self as a man, as a black man at 13, 14, 15 years old, Sunni Muslim, was listening to Capone and Noriega, Wu-Tang Clan. You know, I wasn't no super tough kid. I moved down to South Carolina. Thank God it was South Carolina where people scrap. You know what I'm saying? At least when I was coming up, it was a scrap thing. When I first moved down, I'm coming from like, you know, even though it was super black and content, it was private school, you know, I'm getting picked on. I'm having to learn how to like get tough, get nice with my hands. Something happened around 13, 14 when like I start listening to CNN. I start doing 100 push-ups a day, coming to school in fatigues and Wu-Tang t-shirts. Like what? You know what I'm saying? But what it is it gave me a sense of self that resonated with where I was at as a young man at that time. Islam could organically be a part of it. And when I started talking about this stuff to my pops, he started spitting the lessons. And I'm like, how you know this Wu-Tang record? He's like, nah, son, that's the Nation of Islam. That's the 120 lessons, you know. And then he started opening up to me, and I started to realize my pops had a really healthy relationship with his own journey to Islam. Where he left the nation without being like, they lied to me, and they took me. You know, he held on to all the good stuff. And once I was old enough to be able to like process that, he started. Here you go, son. Here you go, son. You know, this part, we ain't worshiping no man, but all of this. And I had a conversation with Imam Talib, Abdul Rashid, may Allah preserve him, at the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, man, a personal teacher, hero, all of that. And if you don't know, check him out. Imam Talib Abdul Rashid, the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, been putting work in for a minute. He said to me that his teacher, the founder of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, Sheikh Ahmed Tawfiq, rahmatullah alayhi, he said, in terms of theology, stick with Quran and Sunnah. But in terms of the black man in America, take everything Elijah got to say. Black man,
the black man in America. That's my go-to book.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so that self-love piece is urgent. I also wanted to add this in because I kind of alluded to it, but I realized I didn't say it, and I should maybe say it more explicitly. What I realized when I was blessed to have people like Imam Talib, people like the brothers and sisters that I met who from the Dar, you know, a lot of them, you know, people like Imam Shah Abdul, a lot of folks from New York, right? I realized that these brothers and sisters, people like Sister Kareem Abdul Kareem, who's not famous, but who's like one of the most awesome, you know, Muslim, you know, workers, soldiers in our history. Sister from New York helped establish the school in Senegal in Medina Bay. I want to shout out my good friend Dr. Swad Abdul Khabir. She has a project called Umi's Archive, where she's talking about her mom, Sister Amina Matul Haq, who was one of those sisters. Like we have people who their level of work and knowledge is just so awesome. My teacher, Sheikh Amin Abdul Awul, you know, knew the fiqh in a way that was relevant for our people more so than all of these, you know, really impressive immigrant imams that I also met and, you know, liked, and okay, but you don't understand our situation, and even your level of knowledge of fiqh isn't even necessarily what my teachers is, right? The only difference was these people often didn't have the language. That was it. They weren't fluent in Arabic. And the flip side is we have people that got real nice with the Arabic that didn't know all this other stuff, right, that we start to put on a pedestal. And that's how you start having people taking on trips, because you start coming to them with real questions. How do I deal with this situation? How do I deal with, you know, a sister in a panel I was on recently, she said, you know, like, what about the situation where like this sister is married to a brother who's been locked up for 10 years. He don't want to give her a divorce, you know, and the imam, oh, well, this is not, you know, I mean, I can't, you have to stay married. You know, this kind of like crazy stuff. So I kind of just realized after a while that like, wow, the language is not the be all and end all. It's an important resource to help you to like go into the sources, but the human resource is more important. I can do more with an elder who knows the material then somebody who knows the Arabic language, okay, cool. Does that mean you really know the stuff? And then when I started to travel and spend a little bit of time in West Africa, I found out that the scholars there understood that. And so, yeah, the big scholars knew Arabic, but the people who were teaching the children on a day-to-day,
They was in the front line.
they weren't necessarily scholars of Arabic. Some of them were.
Right.
Some of them, they knew Quran, and they knew how to teach fiqh and things like that in their indigenous languages.
They was frontliners.
So when we want to run and go to somebody who got some awesome Arabic to learn how to be Muslim in America, that's how we end up twisted, as opposed to going to the people who know how to be Muslim in America and who understand how to apply this thing to our context. The Arabic, my teacher, man, his teacher was a big Egyptian sheikh named Dr. Suleiman Dunya, rahmatullahi alayhi, who interestingly enough is the same person who gave my father Shahada. Dig that. He was in New York, New Jersey, just putting in work for black folk. Egyptian man. To the point that like Arab Muslim communities in New York was tired of him. Like, you're supposed to be here for us. I'm not here for you. And my teacher said when he started studying with Dr. Dunya, he wanted to learn Arabic. He wanted to learn how to recite Quran really well. His teacher said, nah, other people are going to learn how to do that. Don't worry about none of that. You just sit with me. I want you to learn this fiqh. And once you learn this fiqh, you will be better able to help your people than I'll ever be. So just sit with me, learn whatever I have to give you as a person who's grounded here, and then go forth and help your people. Somebody else can learn the Arabic, can learn the Quran, recite real good. That's nice, but that's not what's going to help you, survive in this country and keep your deen intact. So
Hikmah. That's one thing about a real sheikh, like it's the hikmah of knowing that they don't know. You know what I'm saying? I remember Dr. Umar told me, Dr. Umar Farouk Abdullah, he was like, a real, like, you don't know. If you don't know, then you refer to those that do know. So you can't you can't run into people who don't know. That's an ignorance on your part. You run into somebody who don't know, taking their word for it, and if they give you an answer something they don't know, then you're just ignorant as you. So that's the blind leading the blind. That's what a lot of times that we get though. So and that goes back to like your studies, and I'm gonna get certain quick. Like we, alhamdulillah, myself, I'm hearing your story kind of similar, even though I kind of probably went the little bad boy route a little bit. Then you know what I'm saying, you stayed in that school route, but
hey man, Sayyidina Umar said
a little bit.
If Allah has kept your secret, why don't you? So
you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, my father was the same. Like I put a lot on my stepmother. You know what I'm saying? My father was the same way, but he could never shake certain habits in the streets, even though he became Muslim back in the 70s. I mean, he finally succumbed to some of those decisions that he made. But my stepmother he was always black. Like he went to the name. He was the minister under John Muhammad. Like he was director of minister under John Muhammad.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And my stepmother was one of those. She was from I don't know where she was from. You know what I'm saying? She's from Detroit, but she was not into particular. She was more Wharf Deanish, but she never gave up. She never let nobody talk nothing about black people, right? You know what I'm saying? Like she didn't care who you was. Nobody was over, like from an Arab to a white to a bougie or uppity Negro. She never let any. She loved black people from the rooter to the tutor, and I think. And my grandma was the same way, even though she was a Christian, right? And I think I think for us like that, those type of that type of stabilization and blackness give us a different view than some, like a lot of our peers who probably grew up around, and even from the Dar to the Tablighs to Wahhabism, it was a different, because they didn't have that stabilization of blackness. Like they didn't have a reverence for their grandmama. You know what I'm saying? A reverence for Big Mama. They seen everybody who was a Muslim was an enemy, which is absolutely ignorant. But that goes back to the showing of those who don't know Sirah. So another question for you, right? The knowledge, real talk. Like the knowledge of Sirah, the knowledge of and that's what alhamdulillah for hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I've been hip hop and been around the community forever, but we had knowledge. You had to have knowledge of hip hop. You had to have knowledge of yourself, even if you was a rapper. You know what I'm saying? Right. So from that standpoint, as a historian, and you a hip hop cat, right? You know what I'm saying? So as a historian, and going to these fields, right? And going to you in these fields where you gonna get some of these uppity Negroes, right? And uppity cool stuff, uppity academia.
Right.
And this man certainly it got to some one page. It was I ain't gonna say I don't want to say too much. I just wanted to fight a couple of them. You know what I'm saying? Because they was
real
foolish.
tough.
But how do you move around in those circles, right? Knowing
dope question.
Celebration in blackness.
Dope
and
question.
There's no disrespect, and I forget that. I don't care about it. It could be disrespect. I don't care about disrespect. We always gotta collude. We always gotta shorten up our stance on blackness to P. That's what I'm having a hard problem with Sunnis. I keep saying that because every time we get non-blacks, every time we get around non-blacks, we gotta shorten up our story, or shorten up how we speak or our dialogue to say foolishness like I'm not black, I'm Muslim.
No, you're right. You're right.
How you move around those circles, Shay?
So alhamdulillah, the first thing I'll say is I've been really, really fortunate that I always had good folks around me in this academic journey from when I was thinking about it, applying to grad school, to going to grad school, in grad school. I always had good, I guess what they'll say, mentorship, and it's funny because when I was thinking about grad school, there was an African-American Muslim professor, a Senegalese Muslim professor, an African-American, I'll name him, African-American Muslim professor named Zain Abdullah, West African Senegalese Muslim professor named Suleiman Bashir Jin at Columbia. Zain Abdullah is at Temple. A Moroccan brother named Dr. Hisham Aidi, Doctor for all of them. Hisham Aidi, who was also at Columbia, who was Moroccan, who was not phenotypically black, and Manning Marable. Black American non-Muslim, right?
Lord,
all four of them showed me so much love and support in my journey to get into graduate school. Then when I was in graduate school, I was really fortunate at Penn. I was right place, right time. I had a lot of dope, woke, black academics, who really kind of imprinted in me, like, you have the permission to be yourself and be how you're gonna be. So I was just really fortunate, But I know everybody didn't have that experience, right? Now that I'm kind of like, got my PhD, moving in different circles, I'm seeing how, different people coming from some of my friends even had really hard times at other institutions. Do y'all hear echo? I hear echo myself.
Your connection is going in and out, though.
Okay. Almost that time, though.
Okay, yeah. But in terms of just how to move in those circles, man, I think it really comes back to, like Dr. Halim said, you gotta have love for self, and like Brother Jermaine said, you gotta have confidence. I think you said it recently. You have to have confidence in yourself. And a lot of my academic journey, even going back to high school, has been predicated off of these epiphanies, these moments of realizing that I'm smarter than these white folks that I'm in classes with, and it was like, like going back to being 14, okay, I guess I can do this. You know what I'm saying? And after a while, I think it just got to a point where it was like, okay, academia is a weird kind of space because, academics are I think often very have a lot of feelings of inadequacy. It's like you write you putting your all into these books or articles or what have you, for somebody else to come and be like, oh, but you didn't, this argument was weak because, you know what I'm saying? And it could be foolishness, or it could be good constructive criticism that maybe could just be voiced in a constructive way that maybe sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But I think for me, in terms of like learning how to move in these circles and be myself, some of it has to do with having that confidence. Some of it has to do with the fact that I have a community to go back to and draw upon. My community is not a community of academics. My community is my parents, my family, the folks I pray with. Like, it's not an academic kind of community. So for me, my academic life kind of like ends when I clock out and go be with my folk. I've also been blessed to always be in communities with working class black folk. I didn't have to go to like, some rule. I didn't have to go to Dartmouth, right? I was in Penn. So when I'm not on campus, I'm in Philly. I'm kicking it with Imam Anwar, Imam Anis Muhammad, you know what I'm saying, in West Philly, doing my thing. Also, in having good mentorship, because it really all just boils down to, we got to teach one another how to do that, right? Like, that's all it is. That's all it is. I went to Duke. none of my folk, nobody from my high school went to a school like that, and I wasn't even at the top of my class, right? But I had enough belief in myself to be like, I might be able to get in. I'm a good student. Let me try this. And I quickly realized, like, wow, I have an obligation now to help people who come from where I come from to realize you can be in this space and be successful. One, and two, you can be in this space and be successful without taking the bass out your voice, without, sometimes it's funny, depending on what space I'm in, I talk almost like I'm rhyming, I think, and that's just because that's, I make a conscious effort that I'm gonna just be me, and when other people see that, they say, oh, I can do that too. My advisor, sister named Dr. Mary Frances Berry, dope, radical, academic, elder. I asked her a similar question. I said, Dr. Berry, how are you able to be on what you on with your politics and stuff and still navigate in these circles, right? And she started giving me game. Well, I always made sure to have, certain relationships to make certain kind of problems go away. I always made sure I could check certain boxes. If you're going to be doing this kind of work, you got to make sure you got a job, you know what I'm saying? Like, and a job where you got at least some level of security so you ain't running around here like you got the shucking job to eat,
Right.
Things like that, Yeah.
That's a good game, boy. That's a good game. That's real game, too.
Yeah.
That's real game, too.
Yeah. And it's ill because, I say this too. Not everybody, and I guess I kind of implied it, but I say it more explicitly. Not everybody in academia is on a shucking and jive mission. And outside of academia, sometimes we looking like, we see, these Negroes and we see the pundits on TV who some of them I like, but they're still like they're performing a certain kind of way in order to enter that space. But there's a lot of brothers and sisters and brothers in these academic spaces that are super woke, super down, super black, that just they got their job at a university.
Super scared.
No, not super scared. Not super scared. Like, I think about people like Gerald Horne. I think about people like Robin D. Like, they're out there. It's just a matter of finding them and connecting with them. The problem is, and I won't take no shots at nobody, but a lot of times the people who are the most visible are the people who shucking and jiving the hardest, right?
Right.
And I give some game to anybody who's interested in academia, who's a Muslim, who's a black Muslim in particular, who has a black politics, who's Muslim. The black academics who I found were the most down always had the most love for the Muslims. They could be atheists. They could be, queer. They could be whatever. They see you coming as a Muslim, they recognize you're a part of the community that I feel connected to and want to support. I'm going to show you love. I'm going to give you. You see the one who look at you twisted because you Muslim? 9 times out of 10, that's a shucker and a jiver. That's been my experience.
Yeah, they don't like to make Mr. Uncomfortable.
Exactly.
In the Islamic circle, scholar circle, they don't like to make Ms. Musak uncomfortable.
Real talk. Real talk.
Yeah,
Real talk.
Go ahead.
No, you absolutely right. 1000%. And we gotta get comfortable making them people uncomfortable.
That's right.
If people, especially as black men with these beards and these beads and these hats, if we come in the room and somebody ain't a little bit, you know what I'm saying, and you ain't doing it right.
Right.
It's about that time.
That's right. The good vibe. Good. So alhamdulillah.
What you mean? I ain't get that.
Nah, we about to jump in. My man's about to Dr. Ali. You gonna feel it. You gonna feel it in a minute, Shake. But alhamdulillah, we at the almost at 2 minute mark. We got like 150. So what we want to do is try to get some questions from the audience if they have any within these last few minutes before we get to the good word with the good doc. If you have any questions, please post them online, and inshallah we can post them and then get some rapid fire questions in for Dr. Rasul. Again, please, if you can, donate and help out the cause of Good Vibes, Good Brothers. The ticker take at the bottom. One thing you can do, if you're not a subscriber to our YouTube page, please subscribe to our YouTube page, share it, and invite others to subscribe to it. It's lit content. It's content for us, by us. It's real content that you would not find anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? All of our guests come in. They always rave about it. They know that they can be themselves. They ain't got to be extra Muslim. when they come on this show. You know what I'm saying? They could be 100% authentic. And if you got a good story, inshallah, one day you could be on it. If I think you're lame, don't inbox me. No, it's funny. But but alhamdulillah.
Love it.
Tell the people where you can be found online. You know, your Twitter handle.
Okay, so my Twitter handle is Rasul_Miller at Rasul_Miller. I've recently been clowned because I don't tweet like I need to, but we working on it. And my what you call it, Instagram is where's my Instagram? I guess just at Rasul Miller, right? Is that it? So not used to. Oh yeah, Facebook is just Rasul Miller. Facebook is just Rasul Miller. Don't have a website. If you want to connect with me, if you want to read some of my writings online, like I mentioned, you can check out Sapelo Square, Dr. Swad Abdul Khabir, and all the folks. It's not just her. It's a team of folks that get it in. And I've done a lot of writing for that site, so you can check me out there. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, you just come to Long Beach, man. Come to Masjid Isla LA on Friday and put your hands on me. You know what I'm saying? We can kick it. I'm old school like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready to come to Detroit, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I said, we'll come home, man. We recruiting everybody. We got everybody here, man. We taking everybody. We taking everybody top style. You know what I'm saying? We put the foundation down for the blacks. You want to be black. You know, you sick of all the dancing in the videos.
Yo, I never miss an opportunity to reference that. Yo, I know I'm good. I know, Jermaine, you have officially become the big homie, brother from another mother with that one. We on it. We together, man, all day.
For sure.
All of the videos, dancing. Come to my match.
Come to Detroit. Alhamdulillah. So we got no questions. Alhamdulillah. Thank everybody for logging in again. Please subscribe to Good Vibes, Good Brothers on YouTube and Facebook. Interact with us. We're very approachable. Make sure that you follow our man, Dr. Rasul, on his tags. Inshallah, they are posted. Man, this is a scholar that's down. He love you. And
I do.
I'm sad that we couldn't get Imam Jihad because we really need to touch on the same thing. So, like we said with Dr. Ware, we done got some. We got a couple people in here that normally it would be all-time guests. So you are one of official all-time guests on Good Vibes, Good Brother. We got a quick question from my brother Jaleel. So he said, knowing that
we need the institutions to educate and prepare a nation to learn the book and get wisdom, we need to best give prescriptions we need for our community. Where are they? So where are some of these places to learn, basically?
Oh, places to go, like institutions here, or?
Yeah, yep.
I mean, that's your local. I mean, it's all local. You know what I'm saying? It's all local. You know, I would say where I'm at, Isla LA is the spot. When I was in Philly, I would point to a place like Masjid Kuba. When I was in Harlem, I would say go hang out at the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood. You know, these are institutions. If you are interested in traveling abroad, you know, I found, you know, like I've mentioned, I've alluded to, I'm a part of the community that's based in Medina Bay, Senegal, the Tijani community. These are Senegalese shuyukh who got love for black folk and who empower black American people. That's not like come up under me and be an honorary Senegalese. It's like, no, like we have conversations with the Sheikh, where the Sheikh is like, well, you know that better than me because you're from that place. You know, you do your best. You know what I'm saying? So, and there's an institution there that has produced a number of African American Hufaz of Quran. There's a few institutions, but the main one is, I believe it's called the African American Islamic Institute Legacy Academy. If people are interested, they can message me. I can connect them with people. And Dr. Halim probably can as well. But this is an institution that produced, as far as we know, the first black woman Hafiz of Quran was a product of that school, and still people are going there to memorize Quran. So if you want to just go to get the experience of being in another country, right? Because there's something to be said about just the experience of rihla, going somewhere for knowledge. Not because the knowledge ain't where you are, or because you got to go somewhere else to get the knowledge, but just to have that experience of getting another taste of another flavor in your journey for Islamic knowledge. And if we want to do that, we should be really intentional about doing it in a place where it's black folk and black folk that have some connection to us on this side of the Atlantic. So one of those places is Medina by Kaolack in Senegal. I'm sure there's others. I know some brothers and sisters who spent time in Sudan who say similar things about places there, but that's the institution that I know of.
Okay.
And someone said repeat the places I mentioned in the U.S. I mentioned, I mentioned Masla Isla LA, which has an awesome school.
For sure, right.
You know, and inshallah you'll have Imam Jihad back on who'll tell you more about that. When I was these are just the institutions I know from the places I lived. Masjid Quba in West Philadelphia, which also has an Islamic school. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood in New York City in Harlem, the oldest black Sunni Muslim institution at this point still around in New York. We've had the Daughter of the Islam movement. We've had Sheikh Dawood and Mother Khadija's mosque, but those institutions aren't around in the same way. So those are just some places off the top of my head. And I would and y'all know the spots in Detroit, so I ain't even gonna play myself. I would just say the places y'all say, and y'all would say more.
I don't know from what he's saying. It ain't none. From what he's saying, it ain't none. But it's some. You just got this here. Some of the balance probably ain't there. Some is more Islamic than it is black, and some is more black than it is Islamic. But it's definitely some here. You got Dar Rakma, who's definitely embracing the community as a whole. You know, as far as teaching primary Islamic fiqh and studies. You know what I'm saying? You got the Muslim Center still. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That still has it's the center of all deen in the city. You know what I'm saying? As far as the foundation of black people, like you have those institutions. Sometimes you just got to take the effort to provide whatever you can to that institution.
That's right.
You know, so alhamdulillah, and then again, like the places that you said. But mashallah, I appreciate you so much, Dr. Rasul. You a new homie. You part of the family. You know what I'm saying? And you got love in you, so congratulations. You know what I'm saying? But we at a point where
congratulate yourself.
Yo, I gotta ask you a question real quick. What you think of them brothers from Buffalo, man? What do you think of the Buffalo kids?
Hey, you know what? The only thing, don't keep it wrong, but I'll be like, man, because some of the thing about how the deen started to cross over to pop culture.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of and I'm saying that because of when I had my own label situation, we always was on the deen, but we was some super in them trenches cats, you know what I'm saying? Right. So our music was super gutter. But I remember it was certain lines that we try to draw. You know what I'm saying? And so when my man made that video with the cat and making that fake salad that had the sister in the veil and then go ahead. If that was, you know what I'm saying, that's something I wouldn't put on the video.
Yeah, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. Yeah. It's wild. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know how to feel about it. I be looking at, Lil Durk and what's the brother from New Orleans? Kevin Gates. I think he's from New Orleans.
Kevin Gates, yeah.
These
Kevin
brothers
Gates.
is like, part of me is loving what they on, and part of me is like, but the isn't directed toward them because they're keeping a certain cultural imprint alive in them spaces that's important. But we just seeing them grow, right? You know what I'm saying, in front of our eyes. So you can't be mad at people for being where they at. And in some ways, it's dope that they're expressing the Islamic relationship to that while they on that journey, even if they at wherever they at. But on the flip side, it is a way in which it's like, Islam, you can be Muslim too. That's the good part, right? You look at somebody like Dave Chappelle, you can be Muslim too. The other side of it is, we don't want people to think it's cool to on the back with a package of pills,
don't make it
pumping
a
them
Muslim
back.
gang thing. That's my thing. Like we was in
Allah
the streets,
gang or
but
don't
I
bang.
didn't want to be on Muslim gang, man.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. Alhamdulillah.
It's very hard.
Somebody said, "What's the video?" Allah sent me to be the king.
To be king. Don't look that up. If you save and if you ain't got the strength to deal with street Muslims, go watch who y'all been chilling to, teen into, because y'all ain't gonna. But if you have open mind about things, you can watch it and be critical as us, like us. But mashallah, my connection messed up, so I apologize. But
your connection on bang, bro. Just throw the loop over them here.
Halim, you can jump right on in, man. Close us out. Go ahead and close us out with the good word with the dot.
I'm gonna throw the oop in for you. All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam. Number one, thanks to my brothers. More Rasul than Jihad this week. And hey man, Jihad gonna hear this. So there's a couple things. Number one, I want people to see and and know and understand the the importance. I went on live some days ago. And I'm gonna say it again. Whoever's there and watching or what have you. Okay. Um, whoever's on here right now is that the the need, and not even the need, the emergence and the beginning of a black Muslim renaissance. Okay. and 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 it's a and there's a revival that is happening, that needs to happen, and it's got to happen for our survival. It's got to happen in a certain way. So you're seeing time and time and time again us bringing amazing brothers, amazing sisters, amazing people who are doing amazing things for the community, for our people, out of love, out of sincerity, something out of the heart. And and it is very apparent, very here, and very clear right now. Okay, so that's the first thing. And what you see below, yep, there we go. I think I got the angle. Did I get the angle? Okay, yeah. What we see below with the angle is one of our bright and shining stars. Another doctor, another and more important than being a doctor is the love and the care and what formed his position in our community. All right, that's because if you got a degree without any love, or you got, whether the degree is academic, whether the degree is Islamic in scholarship, whether the degree is in another skill set or proficiency, if there's no love for your own people, then it ain't worth crap. As far as I've gone, as far as I can see it. That's one of the few things that were there in the family. So that's the one thing. The second thing is the idea. They just started touching and tapping into it a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to ruffle a few feathers here or what have you. But if you look at and you check Islamic history, what the Prophet bound us to, alayhi salatu salam, what the Prophet bound us and told us to follow is the word of Allah and his way, his sunnah. Okay, his sunnah. So that is undisputed amongst Muslims. There's nobody that says, "Oh yeah, you don't follow what the Prophet did." Okay, you don't follow the Sunnah. But let me tell you something. Let me tell a few people, because I started telling. I've been telling Jermaine this for years. Okay, I've been telling Jermaine this for years, that Sunni does not equate Sunnah. Okay, and Sunni does not equate Sunnah. Some people say, "Oh, well, that's the place." No, what happened really quickly? What happened to our people when they started calling and identifying themselves as Black Sunni or Sunni Muslims is they got lost in the sauce. Okay, they got lost in the curry. They got lost in the hummus. All right, and they did. They got lost in it. All right. So people who don't know a whole lot, who ask me like, "Who are you? What are you?" or what have you, for the sake of the recognition and their box and their understanding, I will say, yeah, what I practice and what I align with. But I myself don't identify as that. I don't identify as that, because I saw what it did to my family. I saw what it did to just even economically. They told my father to leave his job that would equate making hundreds of thousands of dollars, a year now, to leave his job and start talking about some incense and oils while they were sending their kids to medical school, talking about, "You're part of us, you be a Sunni Muslim." No, it's not a Sunni Muslim. To these people, it's being a culturally and in terms of worldview and even methodology. of how Islam is practiced, you're a Sunni slave, okay? Not a Muslim, and it's not a slave of God. It's a slave to this idea of Muslim culture. And so what you're seeing now, and what you've been seeing now, more and more, stronger and stronger, is the idea and the notion of a renaissance, and that Black Muslim people in this country, who have always said, and who we've always said are the backbone to this culture, are the backbone of consciousness to this society, even though it's so small, okay? Even though it might be, even though it might be a certain percentage of the community, of the society, but as Allah makes it so many times, how big is our soul compared to our body? It doesn't need to be a whole lot, because once it leaves, everything else drops. So my thing and my point is that it is extremely important. All right, it is paramount for all you parents out there, and some of our young men, and some parents, and some of you young men are parents. You hook them up, hook your kids up, talk to your kids, push them in directions of men, and let me say it a third time, of men, okay? Men who actually have a sincere love and a motivation and initiative, a desire to uplift our people. Okay? Do it that way, because your mother, no doubt's there. But the thing is, what pushes things forth, what has pushed our knowledge forth, and what pushes things forth is the love and the sincerity towards our brothers and our men who are trying and busting their tail to keep these families together and keep these people in. So that's the thing. Embodied Islamic culture, embodied Islamic experience, Black Muslim culture, Black Sunni, this Black Sunni idea, and this Black Sunni what have you. No, you can be Black and you can be Muslim and you can follow the Sunnah without submitting yourself to another person's culture. Because what this is, and what the Prophet ﷺ tried to embed within all of us, in loving Allah, you can't, let me tell you something, you can't completely love God without loving yourself. If you don't know how to love yourself, you will not love God completely, and you dang sure will not love the Prophet completely the way that he is to be loved. You can't love yourself. You can't love something else through self-hatred. Okay? So this is where it is. And whatever vehicle, whatever tool, whatever scholars, last thing I'll say, the institutions, how many institutions we got a lot of institutions in Detroit. Sometimes we don't formalize or think about it in the way, but how many buildings and nonprofits and LLCs and institutions the Prophet had? Okay, no, his institutions were people. We have teachers up here. We have people who have knowledge, who have gone to other places, busted their tail, sacrificed, memorized, taught, been taught everything. Who are on these platforms right here, and you can learn from whenever, in whatever fiqh you want. We have prominent members in different tariqas who actually have real connected relationships with each other. Our Naqshbandi brother, come out, who's been a guest on the show. Sheikh Abdul Karim Yahya, Nabalawi, big Muqaddam, big Sheikh, and big in fiqh and tasawwuf. Okay? We have Sidi Kafani, and we have the Imam Yusuf Joseph of the Detroit Tijani community. They're not just like this superficial relationship with each other. They're actually, we visit, act like brothers, everything like that. And quite honestly, I don't know another place in the country that has that. I don't think it exists at this level. Okay? And there are peers and teachers and whatever. We haven't talked about our elders. Then you got Jermaine. Then you got you already know what it is. So what I'm saying is, like, there's something special going on here. And yes, we have what it takes to push our people forward. So with that, with that, inshallah, I'm done. So Jermaine's on mute, inshallah. If he comes on, he can come on and we can do the thing. If not, we will close things out with a Fatiha, inshallah. All right. So Dr. Rasul, if you don't mind, we will we usually close our and yeah, last thing I'll say is our predecessors, Dr. Rasul, our predecessors who were Sunni did not call and identify themselves as Sunni. Thank you for the historic thing and perspective. All right. So this is some other phenomena of people and cultures trying to capitalize on we have the Sunnah and to be that this is. Now we got the Sunnah over here in this country. All right. And if you want to follow some Sunnah against this monster, if you want to follow the Sunnah against this monster, there's only a small little smidgen. There's a group of people you gotta get that and come from and go through to get that.
That's right. That's right.
So
that's right.
That's
Alhamdulillah. Man, I'm sorry. My Wi-Fi kept coming in and my service kept messing up, but alhamdulillah, I got to go back and catch most of it. I'm using one in, and that's true.
It's going in and out right now. So, man, I'm gonna have. It's going in and out right now. So we're gonna close it out. Rasul. Dr. Rasul.
First of all, before let me just say thank y'all so much. This is one of the dopest and funnest conversations I've been a part of in a long time. And everything Dr. Halim said, co-sign it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق الخاتم سبحانه وتعالى والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, everybody. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Doc. And
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Thank y'all.
10-minute thank you, Dr. Jihad, inshallah. So, we're going to get everybody on, inshallah. We'll have you guys back. You're a friend of the show. Thank you so much, inshallah. We'll talk to y'all later.
I'm ready to come back, inshallah.
All right, love you, man. All right, assalamu alaikum.
You too, man. Alaikum salam.